Welcome back to Pratt on Texas. I want to talk about our Lone Star story of the day. As I said at the top of the show, is Abilene the Christian and conservative town it's often touted as? When it comes to filth in public schools, it seems more Austin than the big country. It also has a history of backing openly non-conservatives, in other words, hostile to conservatives, to office. And it's just interesting. Because everywhere I go, Abilene, I don't know. It doesn't really all fit. But a great person there who's really out doing the things that these civic cheerleader people want to ignore, even if it means the destruction of their own world and their own families. They want to ignore it. Tammy Fogel is out there working hard as a citizen activist. Syndie Henry has a big write-up at the Texas Scorecard today. Resident appeals Abilene ISD's decision to keep sexually explicit books. She's asking Fogel's asking the education commissioner to order the TEA to order the removal of 13 sexually explicit books from Abilene ISD libraries, saying the district officials ignored new state law to protect students from profane and indecent material. In a 15-page petition filed this week, Tammy Fogel accuses Abilene ISD's Board and Library Review Committee of applying the wrong legal standard, defying Senate Bill 13 and we've seen this in liberal communities around the state. That's why I really wonder, is Abilene really a liberal community, left liberal or what? And keeping books that even district reviewers admitted contain graphic rape, child sexual abuse, and other explicit content involving minors. Fogel told the Scorecard she's faced organized institutional and community pushback. That's right, don't rock the boat. We still want to run like a little bitty town there, Tammy. Don't you know that? We're going to be a little town. Just certain people are in charge of things. Don't be pointing these things out. Sweep it under the rug. That's the way it works. I'm just telling you. That's the way Amarillo still works, too. Okay, amid her work to remove the titles from the libraries, Fogel said her focus is on protecting children from this inappropriate material. They're not going to frighten me. They're not going to intimidate me, she told the Scorecard. She challenged the challenged books include The Bluest Eye, The Lovely Bones, Speak, Kite Runner, Sold, Poet X, I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, and others that Fogel says are indecent or profane under Senate Bill 13's updated standards. She first filed formal challenges under the new process created by Senate Bill 13 in Education Code Section 33.027 in October, which triggered a review by Abilene ISD's School Library Advisory Council and the school board. The district temporarily removed the books from circulation while under review. Then the board voted ultimately to keep 13 titles and only reclassify 3 of those as upper high school access. At the heart of Fogel's complaint is her claim that Abilene ISD never implemented Senate Bill 13's expanded definitions of harmful, indecent, and profane library materials, and instead continued to use a narrower 3-part obscenity test that allows explicit books to be retained if they have, quote, literary value. Even if they have literary value, they don't have any place in public schools for children. You can go get them at the regular library or go buy them yourself. Anyway, Senate Bill 13 took effect September this last year. It requires districts to remove material that's either legally, quote, harmful to minors, quote, indecent, that includes sexual organs or activities portrayed in a patently offensive way, or profane, which means grossly offensive language considered a public nuisance, with no exception for literary or educational merit under the indecent and profane prongs. But Abilene ISD, Fogel says, is still using the old standard and ignoring the law. The petition quotes District Librarian Kate Stover opening the November 17th meeting of that committee by reading only the 3-part harmful material test into the record and omitting the separate parts indecent and profane from Senate Bill 13. And then the members used the old standard on every book, with what she says, with one member explicitly stating The Bluest Eye did not meet all 3 prongs because it has literary value. In other words, the admission says they're using the wrong standard. And she goes through the book, citing page by page the graphic sexual content involving minors, child rape, molestation, prostitution, masturbation, and pervasive profanity. And I don't understand, why does anybody except these amoral and immoral leftists think this stuff belongs in school? Bluest Eye. Here's an example in the story at the Texas Scorecard. The Bluest Eye, it's one of the books, which contains a detailed scene of a father raping his 12-year-old daughter, along with depictions of a pedophile's sexual conduct with young girls. Who wrote and bought these things for the schools? Epstein? The SLAC members, the committee members called it one of the hardest books I've read and acknowledged it depicts sexual conduct in a way that's clearly offensive for minors, but we got to keep it, see. The Lovely Bones has chapters graphically describing the rape and murder of a 14-year-old girl. That book's banned in prisons in Texas because it has illegal sexual behavior like rape and sex with minors in it. But they want it in the Abilene schools. Kite Runner and Soul, they depict child and rape and child sex trafficking in extended, explicit passages that reviewers described as depictions of sexual violence and child sex trafficking. But, we got to keep that in Abilene ISD. Poet X, or Poet 10, I don't know which one they use, includes first-person masturbation seen by a teen girl that left one of the committee members saying she was so uncomfortable with that one part, and another saying, I don't think you can keep the book when the sex act's described in detail. But apparently they did. Even after those admissions, Tammy Fogle says the committee repeatedly recommended retaining the books. And the Board of Trustees, they adopted the committee's recommendations completely without making the specific findings state law requires, which the new law does require them to make. And this story goes on another page or two. And this has been going all over the state. One of the comments says Fogle's appeal reflects a broader fight unfolding across the state as parents test how aggressively Senate Bill 13 will be enforced. The law was passed by the 89th legislature. It tightened library standards after earlier litigation and replaced the Reader Act with a new framework that gives parents and community members a formal challenge process and requires removal of certain sexually explicit materials from school libraries. In her appeal letter, Tammy Fogle argues that Abilene administrators overcomplicate the law by relying on the Texas State Library and Archives Commission guidance. There you go. Typical. The industry, that always stands up for itself and muddies the waters. And their guidance uses court-developed obscenity test. Well, you don't need that. You're not a court. The law, SB 13, has plain language. And it says, Tammy's right, educational value is irrelevant when the profane and indecent threshold is met. Let me tell you, for all these people think, this is censorship. Well, yeah, we censor all kinds of things. We show photographs of this stuff to children. Do we take them to the morgue and let them look on them? Look, you people are nuts. I'm in the radio business. A lot of your big hits and famous hits, the artists record a version that's suitable for radio that doesn't have the nasty words in it. Unfortunately, they've gotten a little slack on that, but you can still lose your license immediately with certain words on the air. That's always been the case. And they make another version for sale because for some reason people think it, having the filthy word in it somehow makes it better. It doesn't. It actually just makes it sound more adolescent. And I guess that's it because the sales driven by adolescents in a lot of the music business. But that's it. And books have long had versions for public libraries and school libraries that have stuff out that publishers have made. That's not new. This goes back for, over 100 years, 200 years. It's just not unusual. And it's just, my point is, if Abilene's really this great conservative Christian, great city, why is this an issue there? Why are people who are on boards and school boards not immediately ready to comply and get this crap out of the schools? You ought to really ask yourself that. My personal opinion is like so many places, Amarillo's a good one that stands out. The people that run the town, the big people behind the scenes, aren't conservative at all. Not at all. They just care about being in charge of things, and a lot of them are